I just did. Okay.
Hi, I just wanted to interject. Kathy, I'm so sorry, but you're muted and we can't hear you.
Wow, that's really embarrassing. But thank you so much for telling me that.
It looks like it was really good information, though.
Well, you couldn't read my sign language, basically. All right. I wish I could start the live button over, but I can't. So I'll start it now. Okay. So welcome, everyone. This is our second event in the Autism Acceptance Week, the Amherst Regional Public Schools celebration of all things autism. And yesterday we had an event where we had people from colleges come and talk about how to access services at the college level. And today we have people from adult services. So there are many different services out there, and they all kind of complement each other and you can access more than one of them. And I really want everyone to hear about what those services are and how they work. So we've got a great group, okay? We've got people from DDS and Community Action and MRC and Autism Connections, Pathlight. Thank you so much, Crystal Cartwright, our transition specialist, for getting all these people here. I'm really impressed that you all took your time to be here today. It's really meaningful. So what will happen is each one of these people will take a few minutes, 5, 6, 7 minutes, to talk about who they are and what their services are. And then there'll be a period for question and answer. So any of you watching this, please feel free to put a question or comment in the chat. That's totally fine. And we'll get to it after. Crystal is monitoring that so that she won't miss anything and will help push forward questions and may come forward herself to ask or to answer anything that has to do with process in terms of how it works at the high school level. In terms of our piece, we very much work together. So, and that also I will at the end put a link to the flyer that has information about what else is happening this week, and what's happening on Thursday, which is tomorrow, is the main event of the Autism Week, which is a panel like this, but everybody on the panel is autistic or has autism, and we'll talk about their own experience. So it's former students who have already graduated, alumni who want to come back and talk about it, and then or also some current students in our schools. And that's a really exciting event. It's my favorite. This is great right now, but to actually have the students here is so wonderful. And after that, there'll be kind of an after party Google link where there'll be different breakouts to do different things. Like one of the students will be live streaming herself doing art. which is going to be great. So anyway, back to today's event. So on the order I have on my screen, which I think everybody does, I have Arlene and then Jennifer, and it kind of goes down like that. So if you all don't mind, Arlene, if you don't mind being first, if you would jump in and say a little bit about yourself and your services. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. My name is Arlene Lockenwitz, and I'm the Children and Transition Coordinator that covers for Amherst and Pelham Regional School District. And my role is really to assist the student to transition from school services into adult services. And that's via the 688 referral process that the school initiates. For a lot of individuals who are graduating, I don't always, I'm not always involved for a long period of time. So because the adult services are coordinated by an adult service coordinator, Jennifer Durant-Wing is here with us today. And she's an adult service coordinator that works with individuals who are autism only. So I'm going to let Jennifer speak a little bit more about those services. So really just depending on what the student's vision is and what their hopes are, we help them transition into an array of services, whether it be community-based day services, if they need to continue to work on their pre-vocational and vocational skills, to job employment type services. We also offer individualized services. So there's an array of supports that are available. It really just, it's as individual as the individual. So it really comes down to what their hopes and dreams are and what their vision is for themselves moving forward after school services. And I try to support that along with, help from other agencies as well, like Mass Rehab Commission. We also have Katie here representing Pathlight. So, Pathlight is an agency that we refer a lot to when it comes to adult services. So I'm sure Katie will be able to elaborate a little bit more specifically around the services that they provide. So that's what I think I have for today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
It really gives a good picture of the structure of things. Thank you. Jennifer, did you want to add on to that?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Durant-Wing. I am the Autism Service Coordinator out of the Franklin, Hampshire DDS area office. And what that means is that the individuals who are on my caseload have a diagnosis of autism, but do not have an intellectual disability. Prior to 2014, that eligibility did not exist. The department only served individuals who had an intellectual disability. But in 2014, there was legislation, the Omnibus Bill, that said that individuals who had autism without an intellectual disability needed to receive services, and it was decided that the Department of Developmental Services was the best agency to in fact do that. So I think the first thing that I want to stress is that all of the services and all of the documentation and all of the forms and everything that existed prior to 2014 was developed keeping in mind individuals who have an intellectual disability. And so we tried to fit all of that to individuals who were ASD only. And that has had extremely mixed results. And I would like to say that by 2021, that there have been significant changes. And there have not been. Certainly, we have made some strides, but we do not have an entire separate set of services that I would say can entirely meet the needs for individuals who are ASD only. We have some pockets and we have some agencies that I think have a certain amount of expertise in that area. What can also be a little bit complicated is having clinical supports that are associated with those agencies or even in the community that have an understanding of autism and the best way to support those individuals. So that is my preemptive speech. So when I came to the department in 2017, I had about 65 people on my caseload, and 15 of those were individuals who had an intellectual disability. I now have 100 people on my caseload, and those are all autism only, no intellectual disability. So clearly there's been a significant increase in the number of people who are applying for the ASD only eligibility. And a lot of that, I think, is coming through the school systems and the 688 process. That is an extremely important process because as of 3 years ago, there is now funding that's attached to those referrals. So there always was for, you might hear it referred to as turning 22 money or referral. But I think, as you know, the individuals who are ASD only are graduating at 17, 18, 19. The people who had an intellectual disability, there was funding attached to going from their school entitlement to their adult services in DDS. There was not for people who were ASD only. And there was very limited increases to the autism budget, although you heard the numbers that I was talking about as far as the increase in people that we're serving. But as of 3 years ago, if there is a 688 referral to the Department of Developmental Services, there is now funding that becomes available to develop adult services. So that is an important distinction. A lot of times what we're seeing is that school systems are maybe will choose MRC as the adult service agency because someone expresses an interest in employment or because someone expresses an interest in maybe going to college and would like some assistance with that. And I think that MRC is a very important piece of the puzzle, but an individual can access both. So I would certainly encourage school systems and families and students to push for that DDS designation, knowing that you can also access MRC, that it's not one or the other, but the funding, the funding will really only come for the adult services with the DDS designation. So what are some of the services that are available? So, like Arlene said, there is something called CBDS, and that stands for Community-Based Day Supports. So typically there's a social and community-based component of that, as well as a pre-vocational component to that. That is probably one of the biggest holes that we have right now as far as places for individuals who are ASD only to go. Most of the CBDS programs, again, were developed and serve individuals with intellectual disabilities, and sometimes the programming may not be what would best serve the individual who is ASD only. We do have something that's called individualized supports and community habilitation, and that is a one-on-one support that is very flexible. We look at that as being skill-based and would like it to focus on whatever's going to help an individual to be able to be safely and successfully independent in the community. So that can focus on social goals, financial goals, getting a driver's license, dealing with correspondence. How are you returning emails? Are you opening your mail? How do you respond when you get mail? Filling out applications for things like mass health, getting on housing lists. It really is quite flexible. Because you have that one-on-one support. So I think you can move through goals with that. There's also a service that's called Autism Coaching. Right now, AA&E provides that service. They do approximately 4 hours a week is the most that they would do. It is extremely goal-based. And I feel like they work to kind of teach an overarching skill set that the individual then implements on their own to a certain degree. We also have employment supports. Some individuals participate in group supported employment, meaning that they have a coach and may have 3 or 4 people on a work crew. Other people are being placed in a community-based employment with supports with preparing for a job, finding a job, interviewing, and then on-the-job training, and then check-ins as appropriate. What we do not have is we do not fund residential placements for individuals who are eligible under the ASD only eligibility. So that question comes a lot. We have a lot of young people who are living at home, who have some decent skills, but there are some concerns about them living completely independently. So oftentimes, what we would look to do then is to put in some individualized supports so that the agency then kind of takes the place of the parental figure or the school figures to help with things that they may have done previously. That's a long answer to, I'm not even sure what the question was, but that's what I got, I think.
It was a wide open question, and there's a lot to fill in, and thank you. There's so much there. I loved how you started it in terms of the framework of the funding, and then and how important it is to get that 688 going, to get that funding through that. And our school definitely has been doing both, has been the 688 to DDS, and then also referring to MRC. And that's been a really a great pairing. So thank you for reinforcing that idea. And everything else, it's really exciting. Are you ready, Noemi? Okay, go for it.
Sure. This is exciting. We're going row by row. I thought we would go clockwise, so here I am. Hi, folks. My name is Noemi La Salandra. I work with Community Action Pioneer Valley, which is a pretty substantial social services organization, anti-poverty agency that serves Franklin and Hampshire counties. And today I'm here to talk about our WIOA program, technically our WIOA Title I Youth Program, because you may hear WIOA get kicked around in some other conversations. And thank you to the other folks that have gone ahead of me. So WIOA is a program, federally funded job training program, and slightly different from my four colleagues who are presenting, plus Kathy, today. This is not an autism specific, ASD specific program, but folks with an autism diagnosis are able to get support in our program. We have some experience doing that and seeing people through our programming successfully. And it also happens to make a lot of the eligibility stuff easier for you all, which is always a nice thing. So it's good to keep in mind as I'm talking that my work and my agency and my program is really detached from a lot of this other networked stuff around DDS and your 688 referrals that you'll be wrapping up with Amherst High here. So just keep that in mind as I'm talking. So WIOA is, as I said, federally funded, legislated job development program. We provide employment readiness services to folks, usually who are in that kind of transition age youth, 17 to 24. We often work with people, kind of the earliest we would work with people would be kind of beginning of their last year of high school, and then we work with folks who are out of school for any number of reasons, because they have graduated high school and you know, are just kind of trying to get into the employment game. Maybe they left high school without a credential. That's acceptable too in terms of our eligibility. Or maybe folks went to college, gave it a try, and decided no, or are currently in their first year of some kind of collegiate programming. So it's pretty broad, the kind of paths you can come from to get to us. But once you are working with WIOA, our goals are to help people with some individualized goal setting, as Jennifer was talking about, some overlaps there. Learning employment readiness skills. So we work on both kind of hard skill and soft skill development, right? So there's a lot of job search coaching. How do you find job lists? How do you fill out applications? How do you write a resume, cover letter? We do interviewing skills. And there's also a lot of just frank and peer supported discussion. We do a lot of group employment trainings where folks can get all together with their peers in the WIOA program and talk about stuff like how I make a budget, or how to resolve conflicts at work, or you know, all the how to talk to your employer, who is a big scary person in your life. And that, you know, participants in our program get a lot of opportunities to do kind of that skill building work, both one-on-one and in some kind of a semi-classroom, semi-peer cohort style environments. So we think that's cool. And our goal there is really to get people from a position of, for example, I'm done with school. I don't want to go back to school. I'm not really sure, though, what else I'm going to do. I've never really worked before, or I have worked, but it was like crummy and I didn't like it. Or maybe, you know, I am working and I'm doing retail or Burger King, or, you know, service jobs that are really stressful and intimidating to me and not good for my well-being and mental health. We get that a lot from our participants when they enter. And our goal is to take folks kind of from that place and empower them to kind of chart their path to kind of maybe like first, second, and maybe third kind of career steps. So I can say, in terms of what our funding prescribes that we do, we are obligated to provide individualized case management to folks. So everybody works with a one-on-one with a caseworker. We usually meet for about an hour a week. It could be less, it could be more, depending on the circumstances. And that case management, individualized support, that lasts for usually somewhere between 1 and 3 years for people in our programs. And our goals are to, research career paths, explore extra schooling if that feels like an option, explore occupational training programs. So, we've put folks through certifications to get either, certifications or licensures to do things like bookkeeping or manufacturing or business classes, or just like general office skills, maybe doing IT or security stuff, working in healthcare, or even kind of doing some trade stuff. I know we've done some kind of plumbing and hauling and hoisting and driving stuff before as well, if that's, things that are kind of interesting to you all. Yeah, that's our goal. We kind of are hoping to get people from a place of little confidence in their career trajectory, little work experience, kind of through to the other end where they exit our program with a license or a credential that enables them to get an entry job kind of that's career oriented and career focused, and not just kind of making minimum wage doing whatever you can do, which it's great for the folks that are doing it, but also it could be better for most of us too. So that's our overall goal. Like I said, if you or the person that you're supporting has an ASD diagnosis, or frankly, even just an IEP or a 504 without a diagnosis, again, because we're not autism specific, then eligibility for WIOA winds up being pretty straightforward. You have to live in Franklin or Hampshire County. And if you're still in school, you have to be 17 to 21. And if you're no longer in school, so, if it's April and you're kind of making that transition out this June, then you can be up to 24 in our program. And that's kind of it. Some categories of folks do have to be low income for our programs. However, people who are designated as having a disability are considered a legal household of one, so only the participant's income is counted. And so as long as the young person themselves are making less than 200% the federal poverty limit on their own, which tends to be everybody we see, then you're all set there income-wise. And then the last thing is, because these are federal training dollars, folks do have to have work authorization, either through their U.S. citizenship or through whatever stage they're at in kind of immigration, naturalization type things. Let me take a peek at my notes here and see what else I've got, although I can also kind of just wrap up. I also like to talk about a little bit about money, because that's always a good thing to hear about. There's kind of 3 ways that folks get financial support once they're in our program. The first is through what we call supportive services. So we try to retain between $200 and $300 per participant per year, in order to purchase goods for that person that helps them overcome employment or education obstacles. So these are small things like job uniforms, work boots, school supplies. They're more complicated, messy things like helping people get employment documents. So, if you don't have a state ID, if you don't have a license, if you don't have your social security card anymore, we both help facilitate that process as well as pay the fees. And then also other stuff, if you're parenting and you need help with childcare, like we help you find childcare, get you signed up for some vouchers, that kind of thing. We then also retain about $1,500 a year per participant to enroll them in those occupational training programs I was speaking to. So if you're someone who wants to take, who is like on the college path, but 6 weeks learning about internet security sounds like a cool thing. We'll help you research your options. Do you, especially right now, right? Do you want to do independent self-paced learning online? Do you want to do in-person learning? Do you want to do online learning that's taught by a teacher live? We research those options with you, and then we pay for your enrollment and registration and all that kind of thing. So that's one of the biggest sells. If you're looking to get a credential that puts you into a kind of a particular bracket for your career goals, we pay for that. And then the last thing, money-wise, that's nice to know is that we tend to hire all of our participants on our payroll. And every training that you come to you come to a 2-hour training to learn about budgeting, that's 2 hours at minimum wage in your bank account. You come to an informational session about a particular career sector, that lasts for 3 hours, you earn 3 hours in wages. And then finally, one of our capstones that we like to do with folks is actually get them a career-oriented internship. And we pay you wages for any hours that you work. Usually those internships are about 150 hours, sometimes a little bit more, a little less. They can be, if someone's ready and eager, they could do it over the summer in a couple of weeks, working 30 hours a week. Or we could do, 3-4 hours a week just to kind of dip your toes in the water and get used to things. It's very customizable that way, which is nice. And we work with the participant to find what type of job do you want? Can you interview with the employer, see kind of how that jives? And we support you slightly in that work experience. It is important to know, just full disclosure and to be transparent, that our program is not set up to provide some of the supports that Jennifer was talking about in terms of cohort-based employment or job coaching. That stuff is much more MRC and their lane and alley and the work that they do. But if you're somebody who is able to work a little bit more independently, but still wants, a weekly check-in, a light kind of introductory work experience, a lot of guidance, a trusting adult to talk to who's not your employer, that's more kind of the feeling and the sense that we're going for. So yeah, I think that's the Whirlwind Tour. The way to get started with us, I'll be frank and oblivious here. I'm not really sure if Kathy or Crystal are planning to disseminate information. Do you happen to know if that's in the plan, Kathy?
I was just thinking of that. How am I going to do that? And I was thinking I could put my email in the chat and then send it out. Crystal might have a thought,
Yeah.
or if you want to pop something in the chat, a link or something too.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to just say out loud, our website is www.communityaction.us/WIOA. And we'll try to get you something in writing so you don't have to remember that. But there's a self-referral form. You fill it out and ask for a little bit of info: name, phone number, email, where do you live, what's your kind of status or station in school right now. And then we kind of do an intake, review your eligibility, and get you started with a caseworker. So that's how you can get in touch with us and begin that process.
Thank you.
And I think that's kind of it for me. So thank you, Kathy, for letting me speak and go on about WIOA.
Thank you. No, there's so many. I love all the specifics, all the detailed kind of concrete ways it can play out your support. That just makes it so real. I appreciate that. Different things you were talking about, plumbing, so many different things just help make it real. And like Jennifer, when you were talking about what do I do with my mail? All that stuff is really helpful to explain what we mean. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Whew, I'm just yes, let's sign everybody up. Okay. Katie? would you like to pick up from there?
Sure, thank you. And before I get started, I just wanted to say I'm really happy to see that you're doing this this week of resources, because I used to go to your autism resource night and really enjoyed it. So it's great to hear that you have your panel going on tomorrow with students and alums, because that was one of my favorite parts. But
Thank you. Yeah, I would just say it was such a shame to cancel it last year because it happened right, when things blew up. And this year, we know how to use the internet now, so it could make it
right. We've all adapted to the internet, whether we want to or not. So my program is Pathlight, which both Arlene and Jennifer did a lot of the heavy lifting for me on some of the services I'm going to talk about, but I'll get into a little bit more detail. Pathlight is a human services organization that serves Western Massachusetts, and we also have a program called Autism Connections. That's a part of that is our Autism Resource Center. So all the other services I'm going to talk about today require direct referrals from DDS. The Autism Resource Center of Western Massachusetts, anybody can call if they have a general question regarding information or resources or referral. They can call or email us or go to our Facebook page and send a message. And we have an information and referral specialist who gets a lot of contacts, but who is really good at reaching out and getting back to people, and also maybe connecting members of our team who might have a little bit more information about what the person is looking for. And that's open to anyone of any age and anyone in the community. So that's a little different than post-high school services, but I wanted to mention that because a lot of times if people have a question and they're not sure where to start, that is a resource. The other thing that it does is offer trainings and support groups and networking groups, and all of that information you can find at our website, and I'll put that in the chat a little bit later. But you can sign up for our mailing list and you'll get a monthly newsletter that basically lists all the resources we're offering, but also the resources that we're aware of in the broader community. A lot of them are, since last April or March, we pivoted to making that newsletter. It was weekly for a while. We've gone back to monthly, but we make it a little bit more specific to resources related to needs regarding COVID and the pandemic. There is a broad range of resources in that newsletter, but sometimes there's general, if you need to know about where to get a vaccine or what your eligibility is, types of resources there as well. So I just recommend that to the broader community, that if you're not sure where to start and you need to figure out what you need to ask for sometimes, or you need to know that DDS exists because maybe you're not sure yet, or that MRC or WIOA exists, like it's a good place to kind of just start and get that general information flowing. So the other services we provide do support both people with an intellectual disability and perhaps autism as well, or with an autism-only disability. So, or sorry, not with an autism-only diagnosis. So it's a little bit, so we provide services to a wide range of people, and we do have services that support people under the age of 18 and 22, but our adults programs obviously focus on those post-high school years, regardless of whether or not the person has autism and intellectual disability, or just autism, or just an intellectual disability. So the services do look different, like Jennifer was saying, based on how your referral comes through. And we provide those direct services in addition to other area agencies by referral from DDS, from Arlene or from Jennifer, or in their area office. So as Jennifer was saying, a lot of times when people leave school at 22, there's a bit, if they have an autism only diagnosis and they're graduating or choosing not to stay till they're 22, there's a bit of a gap because there's been a really natural structure that's been in place from start of school till then. And then it's a now what kind of moment. So we find that, like Jennifer was saying, there's not like a day service structure that exists in a lot of cases that, is very naturally structured for people with autism to just fall into easily. There are community-based day programs for people with intellectual disabilities, but it's hard to find one that might provide that natural structure for someone with autism. However, it's not something that necessarily the person might need. And what our goal is to help support that person to start to build their own structure, and to make that transition from a school setting where your day is kind of planned out for you, and maybe you have some after school jobs or programs as well, and to building your own plan for the future and exploring what you want to do. And that's often overwhelming for anyone when they leave school. But when you have when you're dealing with managing some, executive functioning, decision making and things like that, it can become a little bit more overwhelming. So our job is to kind of take that and break it down into smaller pieces, and help focus on kind of those skill-based next step resources. So we have people who might say, I really want to get my driver's license, but I only feel comfortable driving on a closed track until for now, which is, we might have to start with, okay, well, a closed track is a little bit hard, but what's some steps that we can take to help you feel more comfortable before you get behind the wheel, or what some other resources we might be able to find that might help you to get more comfortable. Or maybe somebody is exploring taking college classes. We work a lot with other agencies who are a little bit more specialized in maybe supporting someone to attend a college class, but we might help them with that, looking with that kind of organizing their thoughts and their day, and making sure that they understand all the little bits and pieces of their day that maybe when the disability office at the college or the person who's assigned to help them complete their assignments, maybe they're working on something very specific, and we can kind of help them with the bigger picture. Let's put it all together and create a structure piece. Sometimes we have people who really want to work on cooking or other life skills, opening their mail, which does become a really big deal when you don't open your mail. You learn some things really hard way. So we do some of those day-to-day skill-based things that can be more community-based or home-based. And there's a couple different types of models that are structured by DDS. And part of the referral process is figuring out what the right type of model might be. And sometimes it's a little bit of a learning curve. As Jennifer was saying, the supports for people with autism only are relatively new. They're 7 years old now. So, we have a 7-year-old in terms of supports and what we've learned in 7 years of experience, and getting things pushed through to, as we learn, oh goodness, there's a real gap here in terms of what we need to be able to provide, both as an agency or as a service that's funded through the state. And so we often end up working together collaboratively to try to figure out those gaps. And there's other programs like MRC or agencies like MRC that come in as well. Like, we're all very accustomed to working as a team and figuring out what the needs are. I know I just talked a lot about the autism only crowd. We do also provide those same types of supports to people with an intellectual disability or co-occurring intellectual disability and autism. We often find that our area of focus and the issues we're facing are different, and the preferences of the people we serve are very different. So we, adjust accordingly. This past year, obviously, like everybody else, we've made a lot of adjustments to how we provide services temporarily, until it's safe to do some of what we used to do in person more. We had some groups going for a while that were in person that really helped with this socialization aspect, because leaving school can also be isolating, especially when you lose your core group of socialization. One of the nice things we've been able to do is bring some of that online, and we found that especially for the autism only crowd, that's actually shown us some strengths and some progress that I don't think, for the people that we serve, that I don't think we would have seen as naturally if we hadn't tried this. So we have some groups for people that we provide direct service to where, we've gotten to know Susan, and we've gotten to know Barry, and we know that, Susan and Barry are never going to meet, but now we know both of them, and we know that they have a common interest. But if we had tried to introduce them in person, they might have said yes, they might have said no, they might have said yes, but then the idea of getting out of the house and going to meet them was too overwhelming. But connecting online and doing something way more low risk for a first meeting has been really some positive benefits. And of course, many of the people we serve are comfortable online and ready to show off their skills. And so we found that there's some things that I think we learned that we can continue into the future that might benefit the services overall for helping people to feel more comfortable, whether it's reaching out to, new social opportunities, or whether it's, connecting in with a new type of service that might have been really hard to schedule the initial meeting for. So we're all kind of learning as we go along. I'm trying to think if there's anything I didn't cover, but definitely those services do come through referral from DDS. And that note Jennifer made about, checking the box for both DDS and MRC on your 688 applications is really important. And it's great that Amherst does that, because it does make it harder if that doesn't happen. And definitely, if you have further questions, going to the website about more of our wraparound services that are open to anyone from the center is great. And we also have a conference. We have our 30th annual Autism conference that we've brought online that I'm obligated to mention, but it is address a lot of the topics and do a deeper dive that we're talking about right now. We have a panel also from DDS that's focused on employment and some of the employment agencies that are out there, and some people who are currently receiving employment services, as well as our autism regional directors are having a panel from DDS, and there's a wide variety of topics that address both post-high school and pre-high school, or pre-graduation. So that might be worth checking out if anyone is interested as well, in learning a little bit more about any one of these particular topics that we're learning about today. And there are limited scholarships available for people with financial hardship.
Thank you so much. Yes, your conferences are amazing. I'm so glad you're able to do it this year. And I've got some links here Crystal's put in. There's a private chat that I can copy and paste into the public chat, pathlight.org and communityaction.us. I've got those ready to go, so I'll pop those in. I loved your analogy of the 7-year-old, in terms of that makes a lot of sense.
It's true. We're growing. The services are growing.
Yeah, and well, and the way they grow too is so much with feedback from people, and they get shaped by the people accessing them. So I hope.
That's very true.
Yeah. Wow. All right, Imelda, would you like to wrap us up?
Yeah, I mean, there's some advantages and some anxiety waiting to go last, but I'm glad to have met all of you. And what I'm seeing here is a team. So let me introduce myself to those who are listening. I'm Imelda Henderson. I'm a voc rehab counselor with MRC. And MRC stands for the Massachusetts Rehabilitation Commission. And voc rehab helps people with physical, cognitive, intellectual, or mental health conditions manage in the modern workplace. And that's the little blurb on our website. So what the important thing is that I'm hearing today is how the referrals are actually made. And thank you, Naomi and Katie. And I already know the process for DDS with Jennifer and Arlene. And we do all work as a team. And the benefit of this panel today is that I've learned so much more about community action and about Pathlight. And I think I envision us all working as a team. Pretty much we do already, DDS and MRC, we're state agencies. The difference might be with MRC is that we're actually predominantly federally funded and a small amount state, but we're a state agency. And our referrals come from the school and from the community. And the one difference that I can say is that we don't have a maximum age. We serve persons with disabilities, up until any age. I've worked with consumers who are over 70 and up. We start in high school at 14 for the potentially eligible. And once the services that we offer at the high school for potentially eligible students through vendors like Viability and Stavros, once the student gets to junior year, they can apply for VR services. I sort of lean towards the end of junior year, 17, 18 years old, because then I can kind of get a head start with the student on college planning. So we go in two different directions. Mass rehab vocationally the path that I explain to consumers is they can go down the employment path or the training path. A decision has to be made, like if they're going to leave high school and go into college, we can help with a state college with tuition waiver, and we go down the education path towards a career, or it's straight up employment. And I think, Katie, as far as like the employment supports, I mean, there's a lot of crossover in what like DDS might do and what Community Action might do, and a lot of the different agencies, but we somehow figure it out. But MRC is devoted to vocational rehabilitation, and to that end, however we get there, whether it's training, vocational training, Job Corps, or however, we all have like a specialties that we can add to this picture. And as Jennifer mentioned, AA&E, we also, depending on the family's income, unfortunately, we don't consider the income like Community Action does with the individual's income. We have to look at the family's income, unless the person's on Social Security. And if they receive Social Security benefits, then that's, the exception there. But the AA&E is something, I know that sometimes different agencies have funding for it and don't. Right now, we have funding for the AA&E services for the students. And like I said, the adult services, we can come in at 18. We don't have to wait till 22 when the student graduates the high school. Like, we're there as soon as the IEP ends. Mass Rehab's IPE kicks in. And if the student is going to college, that can be sent over to the college for a 504 plan to be written. And basically, we are partner with that client until the client is successful with job placement or finishing their education, or just decides that they would rather go in a different direction. So I see Mass Rehab as a complement, and a strength, within this, just this small agencies represented today. We've got quite a few agencies in the Pioneer Valley that work with us. So in a nutshell, that's who MRC is.
Thank you. I appreciate what you said about a team and there being crossover, but that being a good thing, because I've definitely known students, former students who have tried one and then switched to the other. And, it's all about sometimes just a personal match often. So it's really good to have options. Where the office is located, all those pieces can make or break it. So that's really good.
It's like Katie said, though, with everything being virtual right now, we're all in the same same place.
Well, and I appreciate what somebody was saying about, I think it was Katie saying that we've learned a lot of actually excellent things at this time that we can bring forward. I'm actually, of course, excited for the pandemic to end, but then also bringing forth some of the tools and boundaries that we've broken down through because we had to.
Yes.
So I'm going to add Crystal to the stream here. And Crystal, if you have any questions from the audience, you can ask, or maybe you could ask something or speak on something related to this. And while you do that, I will put some of the links in the chat that people have been.
Great, thank you. I just want to thank all of you for coming today, and everything you said was I couldn't have asked you to do a better job. So thank you all so much. Folks who are listening in, feel free to add any questions in the comments in the chat, and I'd be happy to field those questions and ask our guests today. Like Kathy said, she's going to put some of the links to their websites there. She can also add my email. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm sorry. I'm Crystal Cartwright. I'm the transition specialist for Amherst Regional Public Schools. You can kind of think of me as the liaison with all of these agencies and working with these folks on the screen. I'm happy to help families do referrals or work with the teachers in the schools and the ETLs. So I'm kind of like your middle person, if you want to call it that. But I'm always here to help answer questions, to help guide you to the right place, to the right person. All of these folks are also part of our interagency transition team that we have at the high school, which has kind of been on hold this year, but will be coming back next year. So we all work very closely together. So I know the word team has been mentioned a few times, but that is the truth. We are all a team, and we all just want to help the families and students get the best supports that they can. I'm not seeing any questions in the comments at this time.
So,
Feel free.
Crystal, I just
Yeah.
wanted to just add a little bit more in regards to what Katie was talking about in regards to the support centers. She had mentioned the Autism Support Center, which does a fabulous job working with families who have children and young adults on the autism spectrum. But we also have our family support centers that also support individuals or families who have kids and young adults who have ID or may have an autism diagnosis as well. So we do offer family support services that, again, can look as individualized as the individual, some as the individual family. So some families may be looking for respite, some families may be looking for recreational opportunities, may be looking for educational support. So there's an array of services that can be provided through our family support guidelines. And I just wanted to mention that. So within family support, there are also a few different programs, such as our IFS program, which is an intensive family support program. Our extended IFS, our DESE, all those are closed referrals. So they would have to, come from DDS. We work really closely with our provider agencies to identify those families that may need those services as well. So I just wanted to put a plug in for family support because we have providers that do an awesome job, go above and beyond, especially in this last year. And just wanted to make sure that people were aware of that. So so you don't have to be, and those are open to families that are DDS eligible, that are 3 and older. If you have individuals that are younger than 3, we do consult services with early intervention as well.
Thank you so much for mentioning that. And I know Family Empowerment is one of the family support agencies, and we work really closely with them as well. And for anyone who's like not sure where to start, you just heard from all of these agencies and all of these amazing services, but you're like, I don't even know where to start with this or what might be the best. Normally, I would direct folks to call Family Empowerment and just say, hey, here's who I am, here's my needs. And then they're great at saying, all right, this would be the best way for you to go. So that's
Yep. Yeah, and you don't have to be DDS eligible in order to receive services from Family Empowerment. You can just walk in the door and say, listen, this is our family, and what kind of supports and services would you recommend? And if they did think that they would benefit from DDS specific services, they could help the individual or the family fill out the application for DDS services.
Thanks.
Thank
and I
you.
just want to add that they're both programs of Pathlight. So also all the family support centers of the area and Autism Resource Center always work well together, but being in Family Empowerment and Autism Connections, being in the same agency, if you start with either place and it seems like you'd be better off supported with the other support center, we will send you there and make sure you get to where you need to go. So,
thanks,
Yeah.
Katie.
thanks.
Appreciate that. You guys are all so amazing. It's so inspiring and hopeful and everything. Thank you. So in the chat, I have popped in a bunch of different websites that have been mentioned, email addresses for Crystal and I, and the last one is the Google site that we've made at the high school here and middle school and elementary school, Amherst, that is, to celebrate Autism Acceptance Month. And on there, you'll see the link to the panel that's happening tomorrow night. And you'll see tons of artwork from our students, music that our students have created, writing, books that have been published. I mean, just really amazing stuff. And really proud of it. So check it out. And thanks for being here. And Have a lovely day.
Kathy, is this going to be posted anywhere?
It sure is. It's recorded, and so I mean, it's like accessible on YouTube. I don't know if you like, if you just can Google it to find it, but we were thinking of making an email to everybody with the links to this one, yesterday's, and some of these other resources that we would send out to everybody who couldn't be here because it's 12:30 on a work day. So.
Great.
So I
Great.
have a 1:30 with one of my individuals, and
can't be
promptness
late.
is pretty important. So
I hear
I'm gonna
you. I've
go,
got the
but
same
thank
issue.
you so much for including me. I
Thank you
appreciate it.
all.
Take
Yes,
care.
very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.